Hi, Breezy.
Hi, Summer. How are you?
I'm doing okay, but you look a little sad. What's wrong?
Oh, I just finished my last interview, and I'm so confused about data.
Well, I just finished my interviews too. Maybe I can help you. What questions do you have?
Well, I heard in my interviews that state testing is important data. Is that all the data there is?
That's not all the data there is. We also have surveys that gather information from both students and staff that we use as administrators, and classroom teachers also like to use formative data.
Formative data? What's that?
Well, formative data is used in the classroom. It's taken as unit tests, chapter tests, or even sometimes as exit tickets. It really helps teachers plan out how they need to teach or reteach next. In fact, Breezy, when I was doing my interviews, one of the biggest surprises I had was dealing with formative and summative data. I assumed that the principals would be much more interested in the summative data. However, they told me they encourage their teachers to use formative in the classroom. They use the summative more for a year-to-year look at things, and the formative is for teachers to change how they teach every day.
Wow, data sounds so important, but does it tell the whole story?
Well, it gives us a lot of information that can help us as administrators, but it's not always the whole story. A lot of times we have to look at the whole child and what's going on in that child's life. Are they on a behavior plan? Are there problems at home? Were they hungry the day of the test? Sometimes there's hidden data that we don't expect to find.
Oh, hidden data? That reminds me of a story that I heard in my interview with a principal. He said that this year was the first year all students in his school didn't make gains in their star reading test scores between fall and winter. And historically, there's always been big gains between fall and winter. And this year there wasn't. So the principal met up with his team leaders and they came up with a possible reason why this might be the case. And that reason that they came up with was based on technology. So this is the first year that all students have had tech in their classrooms and the Wi-Fi has been working. So they theorized that students weren't making those gains in reading because they were playing on their computers rather than reading their library books.
That's exactly right. Sometimes when we get data, we have to dig for the reasons of why that data is happening. It sounds like that data team is really on top of it and working hard for the students. What did the administration decide to do?
Well, Summer, part of the school policy now is that students are only allowed to be on the computers doing their schoolwork. Students are supposed to bring library books to each of their classes, and any free time they have after they've finished doing their homework, they are supposed to be reading their library books or grade level books.
That sounds amazing. I've also heard in some schools, teachers use magazines like National Geographic to get students reading. That's a great example of how a decision was made for students because of the data that was collected. But remember, it's not all about what's changing for students. Sometimes the data we collect changes things for teachers.
What do you mean by that, Summer?
Well, for one example, I was interviewing a principal who told me that they changed when they met their PLC groups from after school to in the morning based on a survey that they gave to teachers. So some of the data that we collect really impacts the students, while other data impacts staff or even sometimes parents. Do you have any more questions?
In my interviews, administrators and the curriculum director looked at data differently.
They looked at it differently. What do you mean by that?
Well, they looked at different types of data.
What types of data?
Well, the administrators looked at formative types of data, and the curriculum director looked at summative types of data. She was more interested in the ISATs.
I've heard about the ISAT test. Why do you think the curriculum director was more interested in that type of data?
Well, I think from her standpoint and her job, she's really focused on what do her teachers need to be prepared for when they're teaching their new group of students. So, for example, if students are coming in scoring lower than their previous cohorts, teachers can be prepared to teach those group of students.
Wow, I never really thought about it like that before. I've actually heard some complaints about the ISAT test.
Really? What have you heard?
Well, one big problem they have is a lot of them take the test in the spring and they don't get the information back until very late in the year or the summer, so you can't really apply that information to that year. I have also heard complaints from teachers that they don't really break the information down into useful snippets. For example, you might get a math score, but it might not tell you, are the students struggling with fractions or with decimals? So a lot of people think that we should be using other types of data. I've also heard some teachers have problems with the timing of these tests. They can take a very long time and time away from instruction. Others tell me that students that are on IEPs and that have special needs aren't always accommodated for. And that can also be a problem because we can get data that doesn't match true abilities.
Do you think we should still use ISATs?
I do. I think that there is value, and a lot of the people that I interviewed agreed that there is a lot of data and a lot of interesting things that we can find out. We just have to remember that it's just one piece of the puzzle.
Oh, Summer, I feel so overwhelmed though. Am I just supposed to work in isolation with all this data?
No, in fact, the good news is we have data teams.
Data teams?
I know, it's really awesome. In data teams, we work together as a team to analyze data and to figure out how to best serve our students. It's really important that you find the right team.
What do you mean by that?
Well, sometimes when you're working at a school, you're assigned to a team. Sometimes they do it by subject, and sometimes it's by grade level. It's really important you find the team that is going to address the problems that you have at your school. In fact, one of the principals that I interviewed told me that he was the only Spanish teacher in the entire school that he worked at. So instead of forming a data team at his school, he worked with his district to find other Spanish teachers. Sometimes you have to hunt a little bit to find the right team, but like I said, it's really important you find the right one. Do you understand more about data teams now?
Oh, yeah, I remember from my interviews. Data teams consist of teachers, administrators, coaches, counselors, even paras, and also SPED and ELL teachers.
That's right, but do you know who else should be included on data teams?
Who?
Parents and even the students themselves.
Oh, really?
It's really important that we share our data findings with parents so that they can work on helping their students at home. And it's really important that we involve students so that they are able to get involved and help make goals for themselves.
Oh, I love that.